Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain. So,
Amaya Makinde, good morning. It's a beautiful Monday morning.
It is indeed. Good morning. It's a wet one, though, in Abuja. And Malwell Yusuf.
Yeah, whatever the case is this morning, we just have to give it up for the Nigeria's team at the Commonwealth Games. Wow, what a time it was. And talk about flying the flags really high. Wow, what a time in the country's history where, you know, the country so much needed that breath of fresh air, something to latch onto, glory time. Wow, from where now? From the 4x100 meters relay gold, the long jump gold, the 100
100-meter hurdles.
Gold. Oh, boy, it's great time, really, I tell you. Those athletes, they've really done Nigeria proud. We know that preparations can never be enough, but they just dug deep. They dug really deep, and then look at all of that, and then some of them having games record and doing all of that feats themselves. Wow, just wow, what a time it is. And you can imagine, you see Nigeria gold, and you see all the countries right there, be it England, who shattered their record, snatched the defending championship from them. Is it Jamaica, who have their numbers. So what a time it was, and look at those girls, wow. Well done, thumbs up, mighty thumbs up to the Nigerian team right there. The women doing exceptionally well as well.
Well, that's just to say that it's not only six packs that does it. By the way, women also have their own packs, you know, whichever way you want to look at it. But, you know, one of the things I actually found very, very exciting, two things actually, one of them, in the build-up, while the race, the 100-meter, 4x100 meters was going on, and guess what? The commentator kept mentioning the name Nigeria. Kept mentioning the name
success
Nigeria.
Has many fathers.
Kept mentioning the name Nigeria. Like, excuse me, so you really do know the name?
It was a world champion. Why would you not mention world champions?
It was very exciting to hear. Even from before the race started. That's the corner to watch. Must have mentioned the name Nigeria like 2 or 3 times before the race started, the 4x100 meter race started. And it was like a jet taking off. Now, the second one that excited me was the long jump. Bruna, for instance, didn't even know she already shattered the record. But the moment she realized it, oh boy, she busted out. I mean, like,
you know, part of what makes it so exciting is that they don't know where they're coming from. We know the depth of facilities here, how very difficult it is. Very easy for, you know, a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for you to get certain facilities for certain sports here in the country. But boy, and then when they get out there, what they pour into their preparations, how they get personal trainers for themselves, how they
for themselves, Chamberlain, for themselves, and that's the shocking thing about that, for themselves. Again, you know, I talk about these every so often. The team that won gold for Nigeria, the Golden Eaglets, were called Golden Eaglets because they won gold. And it wasn't a team that was literally raised by Nigeria. It was a team that was raised by Youth Fund. Okay, well, maybe Youth First Federation or whatever, but was powered by some private sector participant, you know, in sports. And a good number of people will always talk about that, and that's a good thing. However, now just imagine that the country itself will invest all of its resources in these spaces. What we're doing in sports, we're also doing in entertainment. But can we take ownership of it? Can we boldly say it's us?
Well,
do you understand? So I'm happy, I'm proud, I'm grateful that at least we're having these, as you said, breaths of fresh air. But can you just imagine we spray our lives with these breaths of fresh air in every sector of our lives?
It takes a lot, you know, because it's not just about the talents, because there's several, the country is littered with talents, but these lots, they pick themselves up. The discipline is also there, which unfortunately we don't get to see a lot in different parts of this country. Many just think that the road to the top can be just like that, you know, but these lots, I can't stop talking about this, lady gentleman, because you just had to stop me because I could go on and on this one.
Well, I know that Keith Daniel, for one thing, will be very, very proud of this moment, because all of the girls, when you look at them, every time they go like this, dancing to this new Nigerian song that has caught the world by storm. Yeah. And they deserve every moment to booga. I mean, they have put in the work, and they certainly should be boogaing. I mean, they have truly done us proud as a people. And I think it goes to show just what is possible. I mean, if we as individuals, yes, our country is not where we want it to be, and I really do not want to go into the details of that this morning because it could solve the moment. But when you look at what is possible as individuals, we truly can lift our country up. People will say, you know, what has the country given me? Why should I give it anything? But, you know, if there's anything that this country has given, it is the fact that these girls could actually go and fly the Nigerian flag, could say, you know what, we're going to lift your name up. And they did. They lifted their names, and they lifted the names of their country. I mean, yeah, the name, there's only one name for our country, and that's Nigeria. And, you know, we saw it the very first time, I think it was not in the Commonwealth Games, but you remember when Amushan, you know, was listening to the national anthem, when our country's national anthem and flag was literally being raised, and you know, the entire stadium has to stand in attention to the national anthem being sung, being played. You could see the tears of joy streaming down her face. Well, some people will say it all depends on how you decide to see, but I would say there were tears of joy, maybe expectations, maybe a bit of disappointment, maybe of what is possible, just, you know, to see that day when your country's flag is flying and the national anthem is being sung on the world stage, and it's because of something that you personally did. You know, it's an awesome moment to really be proud of these girls. But, you know, you have to ask questions as to what more is possible. I don't even want to talk about the country, because these girls have done what they have done regardless of the country. So what more can, I mean, we have to ask questions. How did they get to where they were? I know Ese Brume, you know, got some support in the early days from the Delta State government when she first of all started. I'm wondering if states, because this sports is not on the exclusive list, it's something that states can invest in. It's something that private sector can invest in. It's something that we all can do something either at community levels. Yes, because we used to have inter-house sports in schools in those days. Now schools are built in story buildings that don't even have fields around them. I'm hoping that you know, this is the kind of culture that can come back, and that the Commonwealth glory, which we are all currently enjoying, will not be a one-off. It will be something that, you know, would inspire us to say, how can we replicate this? Because obviously there is plenty of potential in many different areas of sports for us. How can we replicate this to ensure that the next Commonwealth Games, the next Olympics, our name is constantly being mentioned? I mean, yesterday, looking at the overall medal table, I think we're number 5 or number 6. And the commentator was saying, look at Nigeria, 6 gold. I mean, I'm very happy to see them high on top of the table then. I said, look, even they are happy for us. Who are we not to be happy for ourselves? We're going to bask in this moment for as long as it takes, man. We're going to booga in this moment. But beyond boogaing, we need to ask ourselves, how do we as a people put in the work to ensure that this is not a one-off? This, you know, goes beyond now, and we're able to continue seeing these types of success. Gentlemen.
Oh, yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely so. And part of the challenge is the federations can be a stumbling block. That's why private sector doesn't delve in sometimes, because they want to do one or two things. They'll tell you, you have to come and take permission. You have to see us. You have to do this. Pay for this person's this. No, bring this. It's crazy. But look, it's victory, sweet victory. We'll focus on that.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's very lovely. But all right, that said, we'll go ahead and take you through some of the dailies today. Let's start with the Guardian newspaper. Yeah, the Guardian. Governors, okay, first of all, look at that picture on the front page. So they pick up from there, Ese Brume celebrating her women long jump gold medal. And then you see Toby Amushan, Favor Ofili, Rose Chukuma, and Grace Swankocha emerged winners of the 4x100 meter women's relay race. The quartet set a new African record of 42.10 seconds to win what was Nigeria's 11th gold medal in Birmingham and a historic Commonwealth Games medal yesterday. The paper so captions that picture. Wow, what a feat it was. That is fantastic. So, Golden Sunday for Team Nigeria as Brome relay teams win on final day. So, there you go. You heard. All right, so now to, delayed story. You can see the energy drops with that one. So, delayed story here. Governor's advice on learner public service rattles labor experts. Cash-starved governors seeking premature retirement for selfish reasons. Move will demoralize workers, affect productivity. FG cannot be trusted with payment of severance benefits. Insensitive OPS to revitalize the economy, government urged. Workers to demand inflation-adjusted pay rise. Reviving manufacturing sector to boost local economy, experts tell FG. Revive manufacturing sector to boost local economy. So,
I think that word the OPS part of it is to incentivize the OPS. In other words, government should find a way to encourage the OPS, the organized private sector, to do something to revitalize the economy.
Yeah, this is part of the meeting that they had where Nigerian civil servants, they say the condition of civil servants and Nigerians may just deteriorate if federal government accept governor's proposal calling for the premature retirement of civil servants, organized private sector, and things like that. Too.
Well, it's quite a list of counsel given to the president. Let's see which one of them will make sense to the presidency. That's their job to do. But then to talk about retiring X number of people in the civil service, are we not going back to 1975?
50, just let them go.
Are we not going back to 1975? Where's the institutional memory? I don't know. Well, it's a whole lot packed in that. You want to check it out yourself. Vanguard newspaper is next. And what do we have on its front page? It is also talking about the economy. Act fast to save economy. NECA, NESG, task FG. Well, obviously, from the story on the front page of The Guardian, even the governors are tasking the FG. Look at the writers. Say energy crisis, forex scarcity, falling currency, insecurity, bleeding economy, urge FG to resolve challenges with holistic approach. Reforms needed to save economy, NESG asks government to fast-track deregulation, tackle forex scarcity. All of that is packed on page 5 of the paper this morning. Right under that one, the infographics you have on the front page. Tight monetary policy threatens FG's 720 billion naira borrowing plan. The details you'll find on the inside. I'll just take this one because it's very, very important. Strike will beg ASU if parents tell FG. And there is a rider there. We can no longer enter into unimplementable agreements. Fine. So what does that mean? Does that mean ASU stays off work, students stay home, or what? The details you may find on pages 7 and 8 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Of course, the back page has sports, and guess what you have there? Amusa is GOAT, greatest of all time. Well, I'll leave that to the sports community to determine. But that's among several others you'll find on the back page of the Vanguard Sports this morning. Markwe?
Excuse me. Excuse me there. Let's take a look at leadership newspapers. Look at what they have on your front page. As Commonwealth Games end, Nigeria's athletes bring incredible joy to nation in distress. Team Nigeria breaks jinx, wins elusive 4x100, women's 4x100 relay gold. Amushan makes history, wins 100-meter hurdles title, says it's mentally challenging nerve-wracking. You find a picture there. You know, a colleague of mine recently, he's a fantastic poet, by the way. His name is Nathaniel Sunest. He wrote a poem called The Other Nigerian. And that's exactly what comes to mind now when I look at this picture. I mean, he says the other Nigerian is that one that is not written on the page of 419 or page 419 of the history book. These ladies are the other Nigerian, which, you know, the other countries are getting to appreciate now. Our country is not all about doom and gloom and 419 and terrorism. We also can bloom on the world stage. So we'll continue to revel in this moment. Amushan, Ofili, Chukuma, Nkwacha, and Ese Brume doing the country real proud. That's how the leadership is choosing to capture it, bringing incredible joy to a nation in distress. Look at this. They also have reactions. Nigerians react. We are proud of these achievements, and the memories will linger with the nation forever. And for me, this is a special moment and a fitting parting gift, being my last Commonwealth Games as head of state. That's from President Muhammadu Buhari. Sunday Diary says, stand up for the champions. Thank you for doing Nigeria proud, and congratulations to all Nigerian athletes at the Commonwealth Games. You also find this. Well, back to our woes. It's still on the front page somewhere. I mean, after you take that kind of story, maybe you should just leave it there. But hey, we can't run away from our problems. Nigeria's fiscal pressure is imploding. That's according to the NESG. Atiku wicked reconciliation will not fail. That's according to Ghana. You have a number of other stories on top of the nameplate, but let's leave it there for leadership newspapers.
As a matter of fact, you know, I'm going to have to maybe appeal to the poet to change that to the Nigerian, because those are the ones who are giving the country a bad name. Less than 5%, I mean, the 5%, which every country has that 5%.
Absolutely.
So those ones should be the other Nigerian. The Nigerian are those ones who are flying our flags really high right there. So that should be it. This Nigeria is the next one here. PDP reconciliation move. Pressure mounts on Iyochiayu to quit. With top positions in North, it will be difficult to campaign in South. That's a quote somewhere. Party optimistic issues will soon be resolved. So those are the writers associated with that lead story here today. And then at the bottom strip, protracted ASU strike. We are suffering. Students cry out after 175 days at home. Learn new skills to combat idleness. So, sad about that. That's this Nigeria today.
Yeah, it is sad. I agree with you. Well, the Nigerian Tribune has this one on its front page. Politics, of course. Fears over PDP splits into North-South caucuses. Story you find on pages 2 and 23. Members not sure NEC, NWC can resolve differences. More details emerge on Atiku Wike's peace talks. Ayu must go, say George Oluwalabi. Ayu gives fresh condition to resign as PDP chairman. Reconciliation will be fully achieved. That's ascribed to Mukhtar Shagari. Find details on the inside pages. Right above the nameplate, you will find, among others, a front page comment of the paper, FG's car gift to Niger. What's that about? Of course, you want to find the details on the inside pages of the paper this morning. The back page has sports, and guess what? It is celebrating the Commonwealth Games, Nigeria's performance there. Amushan Brume relay team pushed Nigeria's gold haul to 12 as men win bronze in relay. Okay, men win bronze. Do I need to say more? That's the Nigerian Tribune this morning.
Let's take a look at the Abuja Inquirer for you, and this is what they have to say. Tribunal ruling, APC, PDP trade blames. Hold are you responsible for armor clause? That's according to PDP youths. APC hails beavers. Abuja natives warn of unrest. Details somewhere in the paper. Looks like they took the just concluded council polls here in the FCT to the tribunal, and it does look like something has gone down. You might want to see details on page 3 of the paper. Disregard video of kidnappers of kidnappers' den in Abuja. That's according to police. The story is on page 11 of the paper. Inside the massive graft at women's ministry. Women cannot be doing us proud in one area. The ministry is not doing us proud. I mean, we have to ask Mrs. Pauline Talent what is going on. But that's what they're looking at this morning. Inside the massive graft at women's ministry. Spend millions on OAGF auditors. The story is on page 3 as well. They have a number of other stories just beneath the nameplate. But 2 of them I'm going to highlight. TED Fund alarmed as revenue declines by over 60 billion naira. It's on page 10. You have to ask why they're alarmed. I mean, the economy has not been doing as great as it ought to, but maybe there are other reasons. Page 10 might give you details. Senate impeachment threat coming late, attributed to Nigerians. The story is on page 15. Let's leave it there for the Abuja Inquirer.
All right, on to Daily Trust next. And their lead story, different from some of the others. Call data costs to double as FG invokes new telecom tax. Oh boy, there's tax everywhere these days.
I heard that the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy raised objection to that, but I don't know how far, that objection has changed anything.
Because it says that there wasn't enough wide consultation and it needed to stop. But look at the writers, if it will help. Telcos, others kick, say policy unfair, ill-timed. Why Communication Minister oppose proposed excise? We're consulting on implementation, Finance Ministry. Okay, because the minister, Minister of Communication said there wasn't enough wide consultation.
But shouldn't that, being something under his purview, or the office of the purview of his office, shouldn't that proposition have come from that office in the first place?
So if he says no, this is not right, this shouldn't be, how did this come about? So that consultation wasn't there. Had you just slammed this on people? And by the way, do they even have data of all this tax details of Nigerians, where's what coming from? But look, there's just a lot about this tax here, tax there.
Well, as you often say,
results from all what's being collected. And public officers cannot afford to live all this extra vacant life with taxpayers' money.
Well, the Daily Times newspaper seems to offer an idea of what you need to do. Sanusi to youths. Ask questions, demand answers from public officers. Well, hope that will help. We should not just see something and say, we should say something even when we don't see something. If we're supposed to see something and we don't see it, we should say something, right? Well, that's the point that he's making here. And even part of what might also be important or necessary is, if you're a public officer and you see things aren't going right in the office, come on, say something. You are a public, yes.
Who?
Why are you looking at me like that?
Who are you talking about? Who?
The public officer. What do you mean?
That will be the day.
You already said the other time.
That will be the day.
Chamberlain, you said the other time.
Civil servants? The one that you'll even call to tell you, no way.
Chamberlain, you said
I can't speak.
The other time.
It's against you. I will never speak. Which civil servants have you seen come to speak on anything? Oh, come on. Is it this Nigeria? Okay, I stand corrected.
Okay, right under the nameplate. Nigeria's economy on brink of collapse. NECA raises alarm. Something most certainly worrying, but a number of people have talked about that. In the same vein, revive manufacturing sector to boost local economy. Experts advise FG. The details of that you'll find on the front page, continues on the inside pages. That's the Daily Times newspaper this morning.
Well, New Telegraph is the one I'm going to be looking at now. Look at this. Ex-OAU Vice Chancellor to federal government declares state of emergency on varsity education to end strikes. Looking at the riders now. Advocate tuition fee payments, scholarship support for indigent students. Says months of negotiations, smirk of insincerity. Proposes expanded assembly of critical stakeholders to deliberate, take major decisions on education. Page 6. is where you'll find the details, but certainly it's important enough, and that's why it's taken the lead story on the front page of New Telegraph this morning. Insecurity, Buhari approves motivational incentives for officers, soldiers. You have some details of it there. Payment of disembarkment allowances to begin before year end. Rejigging of operational strategies underway. Find all the details somewhere inside the paper. I'm looking for any other story that will be of interest to you. Nigeria can't be consumed. That's according to Anglican primate. Shall we say an amen to that? Amen. I'm sure the church must have thundered a loud amen. You also have on top of the nameplate there, federal government projects 6.3 trillion naira for debt servicing in 2023. Nigeria's sugar import hits 385 billion naira despite forex restriction. What's going on with, why are we importing sugar? I mean, I know there's a whole sugar policy, and, you know, I know that there are at least 3 companies in Nigeria, you know, producing sugar, and a lot of people are buying sugar. You rarely see imported sugar in the stores. So are we importing it to make drinks? I mean, what are we importing sugar for? There are big questions that need to be asked of those who are still importing sugar into this country, really and honestly. Gentlemen.
Well, if you'll be amazed, Malkwe, how many opportunities, the tremendous opportunities that we have that we don't take advantage of. Can you imagine Nigeria consumes something in the region of 360,000 tons of honey, and we only produce 16,000 tons? That's about 3 to 5 years ago from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture.
The rest is for forex. You importing forex.
All right, switch to the Nigerian News Direct now. Guess what you have on this front page? It's a little shocking. Oil revenue shortfall. Experts fault governor's 20% VAT proposal.
What? Say what?
It is indeed a say what story. But, well, there is oil revenue shortfall in front of it. Let's hope it's just within that sector. But then what happens after that? The details, well, you'll find on the inside pages. Proposal, recipe for social upheaval, scribed to Adi Bongo. Collecting more taxes on masses, draconic, insensitive. Well, as Marquez said, so many Nigerians will say amen to that.
It looks as if it's only tax that government is looking these days to get more revenue. Unlock the economy. There are laws you can make to unlock different states and sectors in the country. There's so many. Well, look at Daily Independent. 20 trillion naira ways and means model CBN's price stability mandate. Yeah.
Ways
and then at the bottom strip, new Nigerian airlines lose 629.2 billion naira yearly to restricted operations. Where is this tax going to come from now? Oh, okay, it says how, I beg your pardon? How Nigerian airlines lose 629.2 billion naira. And they say yearly to what? Restricted operations. Okay. So you can imagine how much is going down the drain in terms of tax.
Well, we can't close on such a sordid note, Chamberlain. The bottom strip of that paper tells you something. Toby Amushan makes Commonwealth Games history. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's make history as well.
Well, that is it with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.
So as we were going for a job, and this policeman stopped me, collected my phone and was searching, whereby Inspector General of Police have said it on Twitter. Why? Why will you break it? What did I do to you? What did I do to you? What did I do to you? The Inspector General of Police have said you should not search our phones. Why are you searching my phone? Why are you searching my phone? The Inspector General of Police have said they should not search phones. Why are you searching my phone? Why are you searching my phone, sir?
All right, welcome back. Yeah, so we'll be focusing on what part of what you just saw, that particular clip. And we're joined now by Mr. Hundeyin, who is the Police Public Relations Officer for Lagos. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Well,
good morning, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, that particular clip, I mean, I know many will tell you that is their regular, almost on a regular basis. They see those kind of narratives. They know people who experience these kind of scenarios. But the good thing is the police authorities are looking into this. So at the moment, what is the latest situation about that?
Okay, in this particular case, I got wind of it on Wednesday, and I ordered for the boy to report at the headquarters on Thursday. That's the very next day, which he did. And after I listened to him and established that he actually misbehaved, he was handed over to the provost department. He's been there, but we got instructions from, or directives from the force headquarters that he should be transferred to Abuja. So he has been transferred to Abuja.
Well, that's very interesting to hear, Mr. Hundeyin. I see that, of course, you are very, very active on, social media, and quite a number of people have taken you up on that particular issue. Starting from there, as Chairman has said, what's the normal thing to expect would happen? When are we likely to hear back about this young man so it can serve as a deterrent to other officers of his ilk?
Okay, for this particular case, further updates would actually come from the force headquarters. So I'm also waiting for the Force Public Relations Officer, CSP Muyiwa Adejobi, to give us updates so that I can equally share that update. So we can't really say anything further until the disciplinary process has been concluded in Abuja.
Well, clearly this is an exception that had to go to Abuja. Are there other such cases you've heard within the past maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, or thereabout?
Yes, we get reports of officers' misconduct every now and then. So the week that just passed, I think that is the only one in Lagos. But, I'm always on social media, so I see complaints from other parts of the country. But for Lagos, that was the only one we got in the past week.
Deterrence. Whatever it is, the disciplinary measures that sometimes come on these officers, because it would seem from some of the interactions you've heard with Lagosians in particular on social media, it would seem like some areas are well known for such activities. Some police officers just don't seem to get the memo, and it seems to just go on and on.
Well, talking about memo, every police officer knows what's happening, because the Commissioner of Police in Lagos State, CP Abiodun Alabi, holds regular meetings with area commanders, and he directs these area commanders to in turn pass the same message to the DPOs working under them, and the DPOs to pass the same to the boys working under them. So it's no police officer can claim ignorance. Everybody is updated on the latest happenings, and the Commissioner of Police in Lagos State has actually made moves to ensure that officers don't misbehave. I know for certain that when complaints were getting too many from Festac, we got complaints that, Festac policemen always harass young men, always harass young men. So the Commissioner of Police took a very decisive step by moving like 95% of officers serving in Festac out of Festac, and brought officers from other parts of Lagos to Festac to ensure that there is a new set of people there, and they are not people that have been working together for a long time who have now mastered the art of misbehavior. So it brought people from different parts. So we keep doing this to serve as deterrence, and the provost department, like we keep sending people there when they misbehave. So these things are going on, and other police officers are learning from it. They get to know that, that guy the other day, see what happened to him. Just 2 weeks ago, an inspector of police was actually demoted to a sergeant. And the news traveled wide within the police circle. So it's serving as deterrence. And as
if it is,
keep getting cases.
My apologies for butting in. If it is a strong enough deterrence, it's amazing that the young man, the police officer, heard this young man that he was harassing say repeatedly, the Inspector General of Police has said, the Inspector General of Police has said, and it would seem like it was just falling on the deaf ears of this policeman. So if the policeman got the memo, I'm wondering, would that be an effrontery, or is just like maybe he didn't get the memo or he just didn't care?
So, like I said earlier, every policeman is updated on the latest happening. So for those few that choose to be recalcitrant, they'll pay dearly for it. So in his own case, his trial would start and he's going to explain why he did what he did. But every policeman gets the memo. Let me use it the way you've been using this. Every policeman gets the memo.
So what is it that one is to expect if a policeman stops you on the streets? Maybe you're driving.
If a policeman?
Yeah, when you're driving and a policeman stop you, what is the standard operating procedure?
See, the law empowers a police officer to stop you. The law empowers the police officer to conduct search if he has reasonable suspicion that something is not right. So saying what to expect might not actually, there's no hard and fast rule towards it. So a police officer stops you, asks you to wind down your glasses, and he can just wave you past to go. A police officer stops you, looks into the car, and asks you to park. A police officer stops you and actually asks you to bring your driver's license just to confirm if it's you or your vehicle papers or open your boot. So there's no hard and fast rule. But based on reasonable suspicion, a police officer is empowered to ask questions. Because in time past, and it still happens, these questions have helped us unravel cases of stolen vehicle. Just 3 days ago, I did a press release where police officers stopped a car and the driver just zoomed off, ran away, went into a side street, and by the time the police would give chase and get into that side street, all the occupants had disappeared. It turned out to be a suspected stolen vehicle. So there's no hard and fast rule, but a police officer has the power to actually stop and ask questions as he deems fit in that particular situation.
So are they allowed to dip their hands into your pockets or take your bag, turn everything in your bag upside down, take your phone, scroll through your phone? Are those ones allowed?
I'll talk about phone. You are not allowed to go through anybody's phone. That's invasion of someone's privacy. But search, if I'm conducting a search on you, definitely have to look into your pockets. It's fine if you want to bring out the contents of your pockets yourself. It's fine if you want to bring out the contents of your bag yourself. But yes, if I have reasonable suspicion, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a press statement anytime from now this week. I'm still preparing it. But in Aja, just a few days back, this happened. Stop. Can I see what's in your bag? It turned out to be a Beretta pistol. So these things happen, and we're allowed to search your person and your bag, but not your phone.
So what is the reporting line? Because there are several cases that people just find it difficult to report. For instance, if they're driving along the roads or some sort of scuffle ensues between themselves and the police, they don't have any evidence. How do they report such matters?
Well, there are so many reporting lines. Like I like to say, the more the merrier. Yes, many people have chosen to report to the Complaint Response Unit, CRU. Many people choose to complain to the PRO directly. Many people choose to go to the nearest division and talk to the DPO. And that was why I published the phone numbers of all DPOs and area commanders. So there are so many complaint lines. And on our social media handle, I put our complaint lines in Lagos State to there. And the control room number in case of emergencies only. I also tweet that every now and then. So there are so many complaint lines. But if such things happen, I encourage people to try to call. If they have the number of the DPO in that area, they should call him first because he is closer to them. He is on the ground and he can quickly wade into the matter. So we have so many complaint lines and every one of them is functional.
All right, Mr. Day, I couldn't follow up on the fact that why is it most times it's men of the police force who they've closed the night shift, they are supposed to be on their way home. They're the ones who just stop on the road and do the search. But I guess we'll look into some of these matters and wait for the feedback, as you've said, will come from Abuja. Thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Thank you.
We're back in a moment, everybody. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's the economy that is in focus this morning, and the governors have met themselves. They've given several recommendations to the government, the federal government, incidentally, in terms of what needs to be done. But we've got Mr. Segun Sani here, who is the chief economist of Refinery, to shed some light. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
You've been looking into some of what transpired over time in this country, in terms of where you think we might have got it wrong, how you think we should, what steps you think we should take to get it right. But just a general background, what key thing did you find while you looked into our economic history in recent times?
Well, thank you very much, Chamberlain. Thank you very much. The Nigerian economy right now is in a state of emergency. If it was a human being, it should actually be in ICU right now. And everyone is screaming and strident warnings to the federal government that the economy is in a state of shock right now. But it seems as if it's only the federal government that does not know the situation we're in. And we heard recently that the governors came together and sent a whole raft of recommendations to the government on what needs to be done. In my thinking, I mean, they are more or less just chasing shadows and not really addressing the substance of what is wrong with the economy.
Why do you think so?
I'll tell you. The Nigerian government, or the Nigerian economy, has a very big problem on two sides, major sides. One on the side of revenue, on the side of expenditure. First and foremost, the oil market is at an all-time high. Oil is selling at about $100 per barrel today. But unprecedented in Nigerian history, where the oil market will be sky high and the Nigerian economy will be in a hole. It has never happened.
That's ironical, right?
It's a big paradox. It's never happened in history. Over time, we've always seen a pattern where the Nigerian economy cycles around the performance of the oil market.
What do you think is responsible for that?
They say there's stealing of oil. So Nigeria has an OPEC quota of 1.8 million barrels per day. But maybe less than 1 million is what Nigeria is seeing. At the best of times, I mean, the revenue stream of Nigeria is hardly enough to power an economy of 200 million people plus. But now we have found ourselves in a situation where the revenue is being stolen. We don't know. And the government of the day, this is an existential problem, an existential situation that the government of the day should be raising an alarm, where everybody should actually be around the table trying to find out what is going on, who is behind this. But the government is keeping on as if all is well.
So do you buy that, my apologies, Chairman, do you buy that argument or that position that the oil is being stolen?
If it is not stolen, where is the money? So, I mean, if it is not stolen, where is the money? So the government should address that question.
I'm asking that question because you are an economist.
Yes.
And there are things you will know that you may not even be able to say, most certainly. But, I mean, there are those who will be wondering, how is it possible for the oil to be stolen and it is unknown? At the time it was being, should I say, hemorrhaged by militants, the whole country knew.
Absolutely.
The federal government stepped in and did something about it.
So how
that oil is being stolen, the mainstay of the economy, and there are claims that it is being stolen, but we don't know who is stealing it. How is that possible?
It's staggering. Like you said, in previous times, when there was militancy in the Niger Delta, and Nigeria's oil production was strictured, then we knew it was because of militancy. And the federal government stepped in and did something about it. Over time, what we've always heard about Nigeria's revenue patterns, oil prices went down, Nigeria's revenue went down. I mean, oil prices went up, Nigeria's revenue went up. That has always been the pattern. This is the first time where the oil prices have gone high, but our revenues have nosedived. And the government is saying, we don't know. And I mean, there's no sense of urgency. There's no sense of alarm around what is going on, despite the existential nature of what is going on.
Doesn't that also, indicate the threat that, that is positioned around us concentrating only on one product for the economy?
That is a big problem, and it has always been like that over time. Let's imagine, okay, we have not been able to solve that problem of the monocultural nature of the Nigerian economy. But at least what we have currently is what we should manage around. So we have the oil market. We don't have anything yet because there's no revenue from, hardly any revenue from elsewhere. Now, the revenues have gone down. Now, over time, the expenditure pattern of the federal government has been profligate, wasteful, corrupt, opaque over time. Now you hear officials of government say Nigeria does not have a debt problem because Nigeria has only a revenue problem. If you have a revenue problem, shouldn't you contain your cost? Shouldn't you manage the way you spend money?
Concerning that hemorrhage, now government argues that they're doing something to ensure that the refineries work here.
Okay.
Assuming that if we get to refine our crude here,
yes,
it will have an impact, notwithstanding the crude oil theft that goes on. How plausible do you see that?
It is senseless, if I may use that expression. Since 1998, since the time of Abacha, when it has a history behind it. Nigeria used to refine most of its oil consumption until the June 12 crisis, when Nupeng, Kokori, and the rest of them went on strike, of course, to press the government about June 12. And because the government of that time didn't want to budge, so what they did was, we would be importing the petrol if you want to shut down the refineries. And then the people behind it saw the sweetness, they tasted the forbidden fruit. Oh, this is what it tastes like to actually import petrol, to import diesel, to import kerosene. Since that time, Nigeria has never been able to refine its oil at all.
So that suggests there was a deliberate attempt to make sure our refineries are comatose.
Your guess is as good as mine. So now, to make matters worse, so Nigeria currently spends about 25% of all its total imports on petroleum products, kerosene, petrol, diesel, and all the other ones. 25% of our total imports on diesel, on fuels. So at the end of the day, we are spending so much money, we're wasting so much effort importing these things. Nigeria is spending so much money again, paying the full complement of staff in the refineries that do not produce. They have the full complement of staff going on study leave, attending conferences, going on study programs abroad, and the rest of them. When they come, of course, huge emolument and all that, despite the fact that we're importing the fuels.
There are those who argue that the reason for that is you can't just shut down the refineries altogether. You need to keep servicing them, running them so that they don't collapse.
With the full complement of staff?
Well, I don't know.
With the full complement of staff. And then, on top of that, Nigeria is hemorrhaging, spending huge billions of US dollars, maintaining refineries that would not work. So, recently, despite strident warnings by analysts, economists, even from the international market, international sector. The federal government released 1.5 billion US dollars to maintain, quote and unquote, refineries that would not work. Because ask me, when would $1.5 billion is being spent on Port Harcourt Refinery? When would it produce? How much would it produce? When?
You know, the government looks to be looking towards taxation at the moment to see how they could show up revenue. What will your suggestion be in terms of what we need to do to ensure that we get off this tangent that we seem to be spiraling downwards?
First and foremost, like I said, the problem is on two sides. On the revenue side, the government needs to help us, explain to us, help us find our money. On the revenue side.
From the crude oil theft?
Yes, crude oil theft. Tell us who is stealing it. How do you intend to stop them? That's on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, we need to cut down on wasteful spending. The 1.5 billion US dollars released for the maintenance, quote and unquote, of the Port Harcourt Refinery is more than 10 times the capital budget of the health sector. The capital budgetary allocation to the health sector, 10 times is what this 1.5 billion US dollars that you recently released, which would not have any impact whatsoever. It's about 10 times the capital budgetary allocation to the education sector.
Are you saying that you don't see the refinery coming back on stream?
It will not work.
Even though they've given us timelines as to when this time around it will come?
We've been spending monies like that. It's not the first time that this government has released huge monies for the maintenance of the refineries. As they were even maintaining it, quote and unquote, recently, it was in the news. It caught fire. And they said, yes, it caught fire, but we will still fix it.
Even though they say this particular one, the funding and financing of this is kind of different. And so
where is it coming from?
The IOCs are also involved in this, and so they want to make sure. But that's a separate conversation entirely.
It's still
so given the timelines that they've given, we'll look to those timelines and see what happens with that. So other than that, how else should we go about stopping all of this?
So, like I said, we need to stop the stealing of our oil. We need to stop wasteful spending. Remember, we have an arrangement in place that is totally unacceptable. We have an NNPC. NNPC, for instance, that's just an example. NNPC does not own Nigeria's oil. The oil belongs to Nigeria. But NNPC takes the proceeds of oil sales for Nigeria and spends the money anyhow it likes.
John, the old NNPC or NNPC Limited?
They say the same NNPC. It's just hogwash. NNPC Limited, what is the impact? So what they do, they spend what they like. They say, well, pipeline maintenance, subsidy, quote and unquote.
Now that it runs as a company.
Without any oversight whatsoever.
So you think that even now that it runs as a company, where they're supposed to declare dividends, make profit, it will still run the same way?
Under the same management?
It changed.
What is the change? Let them tell us. NNPC was always a company. But now you say, okay, it's a company. What is the real impact of that? Tell us the real context in which it is a company.
I guess we'll have to wait
Are you privatizing it? They said, no, we're not privatizing it. Under the same management, under the same environment where the expenditure of NNPC is not subject to any oversight by anyone.
But
the NNPC, for instance, let's talk about
the board.
The board, listen to me. Recently, remember the controversy between the last petroleum minister, Kachiku, raised an alarm. $25 billion was signed away by the contracts signed by the former NNPC GMD. Part of that was $3 billion US for pipeline maintenance or pipeline contract. The board of NNPC was not kept informed. The supervising minister was not kept informed. The acting president was not kept informed. Baba, the president himself, was ill and in London. And he assigned away his powers to an acting president. The GMD of NNPC flew to a president who had signed away his powers, flew to him in London and got his signature on paper. And then the petroleum minister raised an alarm. How did you do this? NNPC board did not even sit over this to even look at it or even approve it. And I said, well, how did you sign the contract? They said, well, it went through the NNPC Tenders Board. Who sits over the NNPC Tenders Board? The same GMD who signed the contracts is the chairman of NNPC Tenders Board. So NNPC spends our money the way it likes and then surrenders the rest to us and say, okay, this is what is left after subsidy, after pipeline maintenance. The same subsidy that we don't even know how it is calculated. We just hear the figures. We don't know what is the oil consumption, the petrol, the fuel consumption of Nigeria. It's just one figure up there in the air. We don't know how it is calculated. We don't know the landing cost of the petrol or the diesel and the rest of it. We don't know how it is calculated. We just see the figures. And the figures are rising every day on subsidy.
Are these part of the wasteful spending you talked about?
Absolutely.
So you think the subsidy should be removed?
You see, not only should it be removed, we don't even know how it is calculated. For instance, this year, we've spent about 1.7 trillion naira, 1.7 trillion on so-called subsidy. And the World Bank is estimating that by next year, that figure, in fact this year, by the end of this year, that figure will reach 6 trillion. 6 trillion, because of course, the oil market, the oil prices are going up. And our own finance minister said actually the figure is going to be 6.72 trillion. I mean, you can put that in context. Our budget is about, this year, they said 13 trillion naira budget. Of course, where do we get, it's a hugely deficit spending budget. So, 6.72 will go to petroleum subsidy. That is wasteful. And of course, it's opaque. It's corrupt and should go.
What other expenses do you think we need to cut down on that are there now, but we don't seem to know?
A whole lot. But you see, for instance, there's money just leaking away. The hemorrhage is actually alarming. You read recently an accountant general that was appointed barely 2 years ago, thereabout, is being charged with stealing 109 billion. One single person, 109 billion. And that is, those are leakages to the system.
As we wind down this, is there any way that you think the private sector can actually get off the shackles of state policies such that they could flourish, irrespective of perhaps the policies, even though that may be challenging, that comes from the center?
You see, yes, the private sector could, but how do you manage in an environment right now where the economy is grounded, where external reserves are plummeted to $15 billion US, and there is serious FX rationing going on in the system now? You cannot open, from M and say, I want to import this. There's serious rationing going on. Even to import drugs, essential drugs and other, Form A, filling Form A forms to bring in non-invisibles and the rest of it. It is very difficult right now. Our FX has plummeted. So there's only a limit to what the private sector can do in such an environment where the system has been run down.
Do you agree with those who say that the power sector holds a huge key to unlocking this economy?
Absolutely. I agree. So if, for instance, all the monies we have been wasting were to have been pumped into the power sector, for instance, the education sector, the health sector, those are three crucial sectors of the economy that we should have paid serious attention to. For instance, we generate power, but we cannot transmit the power that has been generated. So there is this still concept of stranded electricity, whereby electricity that has been generated cannot be transmitted to the discos for them to distribute around. So that problem of the transmission infrastructure has not been addressed in the 7 years that this government has been.
Anything the states could have done or can do?
Obviously. So we need huge investment in that sector. We need for restructuring, of course they just announced that recently, to allow the states also to be able to generate power and transmit the power and distribute it within their state.
Yeah, that law just being amended. So we hope that they can leverage on that.
We can leverage on that, yes.
We do thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully in the days ahead, we'll keep focusing on the economy because without the economy, What can
we do?
Mr. Shegosani is the chief economist of Refinery. We're back in a moment. Stay with us.
Indeed, we're still talking on the economy and state of the nation, but very interesting conversation we have had backstage. Just as you've seen there, I'm now being joined by Mr. Lanre Issa Onilu, who is the former National Publicity Secretary of the All Progressives Congress, and Mr. Mark Jacobs, who is former National Legal Advisor of the PDP and also former Attorney General of Kaduna State. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I do not know if you heard part of what our second guest, Mr. Shegun Sani, who is the chief economist of Refinery, talked about, but he did mention something about a paradox. The fact that this is the time where we should be basking in the high price of crude, but that is not happening. As a matter of fact, it's the first time, according to him, that we're having high prices and, we're having low revenue. And for a number of people, it's really mind-boggling. I think not just for them, but also for even people like our governors. Only recently, I think the parts of the conversation which they had with the president recently came out, and some 35 recommendations or so, all of them pointing to the fact that something drastic and urgent needs to be done about the economy. I do not know what you have seen in recent times, but I'd like to, ask you, let me start with you, Mr. Jacobs, about your take on our current state of affairs.
Personally, Nigeria is on a dangerous brink. I fear every day I wake up, I just continue to wonder, how will this day be? Because one, the level of insecurity makes nonsense of any economic policy. You can't, in good conscience, in good faith, say that Nigeria is okay. Anybody alive in this country, walking in the streets of Nigeria, knows that Nigeria is not the same. Things are not working. The insecurity has graduated to the level that I just read a report by Punch this morning, which said that within the last 18 months, 800 soldiers have been killed by terrorists. 800. In a country where we have a paucity of personnel to man our security, 800 have been killed. Many other hundreds injured. And so, for me, all the economic policies that anybody can talk about melt into nothingness when you juxtapose them with the level of insecurity. And I think that should be the talking point in the mouth of any Nigerian. The governors, I heard some of the recommendations, and I asked myself, why now? There have been governors for 8 years or 7 years, and it is in the last 6 months or 8 months or to the end of their tenure that they are bringing 35 recommendations to the presidency. It doesn't make sense. These are things that ought to have been developed, debated, interrogated at the commencement of their tenures. And I find it very strange that it is at the wee hours of their tenure that they are bringing these things up. And for me, it's just beating about the bush.
It's not a case of better late than never?
No, they know they can't implement any of those things because most of them are already in the campaign trail. They are too busy to even implement. Assuming the presidency wants to implement these things they have recommended, they won't have the time because they are busy. Many of them are already campaigning for their next election.
Well, Mr. Onilu, I do not know, what your take will be on it. I don't know that when the government of President Muhammadu Buhari started in 2015, Nigeria, really was in dire straits at that point in time. Prices of crude had crashed, not very much left in our savings, etc., etc. But things have since improved since that time. I mean, there was a lot of talk and maybe even work around diversifying the economy. And then we saw that, agriculture, started to contribute quite a bit to the GDP. But what we're seeing now is a complete surprise, because some people were thinking that the moment the price of oil improves, all of these other efforts, should be boosted and it should result in some boom. But that has been the complete opposite. What precisely has gone wrong by your own assessment?
Yeah, well, I thank you very much. I think, you started right by saying Nigeria didn't start in 2015. We've had a lot of challenges even before this government came into place. As you rightly noted, the revenue was completely down. Oil prices hovering around $30, $40 per barrel. And so we came in with that challenge. The state of insecurity was no better. It is just the type of insecurity, if I may put it that way. What we had before was the entire Northeast almost taken off this country, by Boko Haram element and ISWAP. And now that has gone down almost completely to zero. We now have a new type of insecurity. I mean, the banditry, kidnappers, and all this stuff that are spread all over the country and have actually spread our security architecture so thin that they are barely coping as part of all the effort of the government. Then that is not helped by a lot of challenges that have come globally, not just Nigeria. As the oil prices started improving and we're supposed to reap the benefit of that, you had the coronavirus that shut down the world for nearly 18 months when nothing practically was happening. You couldn't even do business, not to talk of generating revenue. People were completely locked down. Businesses were shut down. And we came out of that mid-2021 and we're just trying to pick up, not Nigeria, I'm talking globally. So the challenges are there for the entire world. But that will be that peculiar situation, country to country. In Nigeria, we have our own peculiar situations. We have, for instance, the issue of insecurity that is said. You may not find banditry in Ghana, you may not find it in the US, but they have their own challenges. But the issue of economy, the inflation rate that is, going through the roof, that is common, across the world. I think what we should be asking ourselves is, what is the government doing about all of this? Is the government responding to this in any way? And if the government is responding, what are the reasons why we are not seeing enough, to justify whatever effort that is going into that?
So while one can appreciate the fact that, there are global challenges and that, there is no isolated environment, because, there is talk about globalization. Yeah. However, ours is quite peculiar because we seem to be the only oil-producing country that is in some distress as we speak. And it would seem that our problems are self-inflicted. For instance, you talked about insecurity and how the crisis has since left the Northeast. It's all over the Northwest, which is our food basin. North Central, it's making it impossible for people to farm. And then there is, apart from the fact that people are unable to go to the farms, there is the general distrust and insecurity, which, ill will, which is just breeding amongst the citizenry. So when we look at our own peculiar situation, don't you think that our own problems are more self-inflicted than what is actually happening around the world?
Absolutely. I mean, nobody can deny that. Whatever we are having today, I would say 70% self-inflicted. And that goes to the fact that we're supposed to have 4 oil refineries. And we had a government under a political party that ran for 16 years. And not one of these refineries came back on stream. And we are into the 8th year of this government. As I speak to you, by early 2023, the Port Harcourt refinery will be back on stream, producing initially at about 60,000 per barrel. barrel a day.
Yeah, but don't you think that that's part of the dilly-dallying? Because initially, I remember that, the first Minister of State for Petroleum, Ibeka Chukwu, was pretty optimistic about how we're going to sell the refineries. And then much later, we're told, oh, no, they're not going to sell it anymore. And there was a lot of emphasis on the private sector refinery, which was coming up, the Dangote refinery. There were talks that by 2019, at the latest, it was going to be ready. And I think there was a lot of hopes hung on that particular refinery. This is 2022, is yet to come on stream, despite all that we've seen, even though we're optimistic about the Port Harcourt refinery. Don't you think that the dilly-dallying, the uncertainty about what a government wanted to do and go about it also caused part of why we're here?
I won't call it dilly-dallying. I would say uncertainties that are beyond human control. For instance, you talked about Dangote refinery that ought to be on stream by 2019. You have to take about 1.5 years of coronavirus out of that. And by the time you had that...
Coronavirus was 2020.
Yeah, that spill into it. You get the point. And the Dangote refinery is not operating just in Nigeria. There are global implications to whatever that refinery is doing. And so whatever is happening elsewhere also affects us. You speak about the prices of food now that is going up, that is the inflation. You know what is happening in Ukraine, Russia has implication to whatever is happening in Nigeria in terms of prices of food, in terms of the price of bread, because there's no wheat, which the world, about 18% of wheat comes from that axis. And it's not coming to the rest of the world. And then so that's effect from one area to the other. So it's not an isolated case. But what is important for us to note is that even to provide that environment for the private sector to do that humongous, economic activity that is going to bail us out from having to take our crude outside of this country, which we did over 16 years of PDP. And now we are not going to do that again from first quarter of 2023. We're going to be refining enough for our own local consumption and even for export. And by the time that is taken off, you're soon going to have the Port Harcourt common stream. And so we're going to have sufficiency in refined products in Nigeria.
There will still be questions as to what we're going to do with the subsidy. I mean, I'm looking at the recommendations of the governors. I'm trying to see if I can quickly open that particular page where it is. And, part of their concerns is the amount of money we're spending on subsidies, between 5 to 7 trillion naira on subsidies and under recovery. And they're wondering whether the federal government cannot do something about it, asking the federal government to end it. Let me see if this is it. That's it on the screen as well. They want in fact, it is number 1 on their list. Eliminate PMS subsidy and under recovery, 6 to 7 trillion naira. Eliminate NNPC's federation-funded projects, 300 billion. Cap social investment program, national poverty reduction with growth strategy budgets to 200 billion. Eliminate extra constitutional deductions from FAC. I think one of them that is also, they're divided into different parts. There's part A, part B, part C. That's how they amounted to 35. And I'm going to jump quickly to number 8. It says, offer federal civil servants above 50 years, a one-off retirement package to exit the service and employ lower cost, more ICT compliant youths and women graduates. I don't know why they think women, should earn less. Women should actually take objection to that. But that's their recommendation. Maybe they think that, the man will always earn more.
This is election year.
Yes.
So politicians normally will make recommendations that will appeal to voters. It has nothing to do with improving the economy.
Is that appealing to voters? Because yes. I hear that civil servants are up in arms with that.
Of course. No, but you see, when they now touch women and youths, it's votes gathering.
No, but you look at the context.
It's vote targeted. And
look at the context in which they have talked about this.
Yes.
Employ lower cost.
Lower cost.
more ICT compliant youths and women. In other words, they're going to be paid less.
Less than other people.
Than the regular civil servants.
Well, look, I don't think that's what they're talking about.
Just a moment. Let him give me his own reading here.
Is that these are politicians. Like it or not, they know the things that are bothering Nigerians. They know. They know that India system, like governors have SAs, SSAs, PAs to SAs, a long list.
You're once in government,
yes.
So you
so
know.
I know. I didn't see any recommendation in that list where they say they should streamline their baggage. Their long list of unproductive personnel that they go around with. They didn't mention the number of vehicles they travel with. You see a governor coming into this town from Ekiti or from Abia. He has 25 vehicles on the convoy. And they come and close down Sheraton or Transcorp with all that number at the expense of the state. Nobody is mentioning those critical activities. And most of these governors...
That hasn't changed. Some governors will say, oh, we've since cut down on that. I mean, I travel with how many people? Maybe 2 or 3 people.
We see them in Abuja here. They cause a lot of traffic problems when they come. When they have meetings, we see them. And some of them even relocate to Abuja and stay here permanently until it is time to collect FAC. They go back, arrange salaries, collect their security vote. They didn't mention anything about removing this big money they collect as security vote. Now, these are politicians that they are trying to talk to the gallery to win sympathy from those who are supposed to give votes. We know them. We've been part of them, and we are still with them. So they are not sincere in these matters. And let me go back a little bit to the issues of the refineries. Honestly, I pity my friends in the APC when they start talking about 16 years. It's an old song that has gone stale, and it is no longer sellable. Look, in 2014, the documents are there. The television recordings are there where the APC promised 1 refinery every 2 years. That they will build a refinery every year in Nigeria. They didn't say they are going to revitalize the refineries. So it's actually a situation where people came into power via populist propaganda. Then they came in and they realized that those things they were talking about are not realizable. You should apologize to Nigerians. Look, we promised this. We can't do it because either the funds are not there or look, you can't build a refinery in 2 years. But they promised that in each year.
It depends on what kind of refinery.
No.
Some people have talked about modular refineries.
Okay, let's assume that that is what they meant. Where are they?
Big question.
No. So, and we're at the end of the tenure. And they want to go back to the 16 years of, for God's sake, let's stop this kind of talk. 16 years, yes, that has come and gone. Everybody in Nigeria knows what happened in 16 years. At least Nigeria was competing favorably in the world. We had the fastest growing economy in Africa. Today, Nigeria is the headquarters of poverty. And you want to talk about 16 years? I was in government.
Let me take this conversation.
Yes.
Let me take this conversation to my colleagues in Lagos.
Yeah, Mr. Nilu, good morning. Good to see you. Speaking about some of what the country is going through and the promises that this government has made, and looking at where we are today, and what would have happened if perhaps certain things might have been done. In March 2016, precisely, the president, he was speaking at a banquet at the Villa. No, it was actually at the National Economic Council. So this was titled Nigerian State Multi-Centers of Prosperity. And he said, let me quote him now, Nigerians' favorite talking point and is built on jokes is the power situation in our country. But ladies and gentlemen, it is no longer a laughing matter. We must, and by the grace of God, we will put things right. In the next 3 years left for this administration, we have given ourselves the target of 10,000 megawatts distributable power. Today, we haven't seen any of that.
Yeah, I agree with you that that has not happened. But I will also say, my friend here just said we should not discuss what happened in 16 years, because this government came on board in 2015, hoping that the privatization that happened in the power sector that led to having discos and all the rest will have taken care of that stage of reform in the power sector. But it turned out that we were put in a very difficult situation by the kind of agreement that PDP signed with those people who had nothing to do with power sector, who had no knowledge and no investment to put into the power sector, and they parceled the various distribution units to those people. Just about 2-3 months now, this government is struggling to come out of that agreement. A kind of, Nigeria was chained, let me put it in that way. We were chained down by the agreement PDP signed with this discourse. We were supposed to put certain amount of money into the sector, and they have refused to do that. Ordinary metering, for them to produce meter so that people will not be billed, estimated billing would be taken out of our system. That didn't happen. Up to now, we don't have meters in several homes, millions of homes. They are paying estimated billings. So I'm sure you know that in the last 2 months, this government finally, and there's still that fight back from these same people, finally this government is trying to take these things away, and the banks are, who gave out the money are taking the companies away from them, and then we are going to now go back to what ought to have happened some 10 years ago. We are going back to it now in 2022. That is the sad reality. So nobody could have envisaged that some people will sit down and pursue distribution companies and give to their friends and cronies and themselves, chain down the country to an agreement that is not profitable to us, that will not generate power, that will not distribute power. But notwithstanding,
you can hear me right now. Just 1 second. On the issue that you just raised, the question Chamberlain asked you, I think is very, very direct. He's quoting a presidential statement from March 2016. And at that time, the president said, in the next 3 years.
Yes.
Now, this is like what, 6 years after. So going back to quoting 16 years, when the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, with all executive powers, made a promise of 3 years, don't you think it's somewhat quoting 16 years?
Could you just hold on? March 2015, you're referring to a president-elect, not a president that was
2016, serving. Not 2014.
Who had no access.
It was 2016, not 2014. He was president from 2015.
Yes, you said 2015 March.
2016.
And that was just barely after election.
Mr. Izonilu, it was 2016. It was the following year. 16, not 15.
Okay, 2016.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Are you hearing me now?
We can hear you, go ahead.
As of 2016, the government is barely 1 year old. Nobody knew that we are in such a situation that we would not be able to assess these companies and do anything about them because of the kind of agreement that were signed on behalf of the federal government by the PDP government. And it took this far for government to be able to wriggle out of this agreement. And if the government was not determined, we will not even get to where we are today. We will not be able to even wriggle out for another 20 years. And what we should be interrogating is For Channel TV, for instance, to help Nigerians to bring up the agreement that PDP signed with these companies. What were the terms of the agreement? Did the terms also encourage the federal government from being able to take action? And that was what happened. It is not possible for government to have gone against those agreements because the penalty that has been put there with the clauses are going to be huge and very damaging to our economy. So now, the last 2 years, finally, government is getting a hold on it. And now those distribution companies have been taken over from the people who for 7, 8, 9 years have not put ₦1 investment into these distribution companies. And that's the problem we have. Because it's not about generation. Even if when you generate power today in this country, 10,000 megawatts, 15,000, you cannot distribute it. We don't have the network to distribute power because those companies could not do what they were supposed to do based on the terms of agreement, but yet there are clauses there that say federal government couldn't or shouldn't take those companies away from them. And that was the problem we face as a country. And I think Nigerians should rise up to really interrogate that. The media should interrogate that, bring up the agreement, what were the terms, why would anybody sign those on behalf of this country? And why would anybody put Nigeria in this kind of situation?
I do know that, Mr. Mark Jacobs is a lawyer, and the first Minister of Power, Works and Housing was, the first Minister of Power, Works and Housing was also a lawyer as well. Yes. So when he looked at, under the Buhari administration, when he looked at the agreement, he said that, look, it was only better for Nigeria to follow the terms of the agreement, otherwise we risked a reputational, it was more reputational than anything else in terms of challenging what had been signed, because it says if a country starts to go back on what it has signed, then a lot of people will start to question what sort of country that is. But let me come to you, sir. I know you are itching to respond to a few of the things that he's raised. This is where we currently are. I do not want to talk about the last 15 years, and we can talk about the last 7.5 years of this government. But we're looking forward right now. We know that as a country, we are in dire straits. If we do nothing, we cannot expect to continue doing the same thing and expecting different results. If we do nothing, we're not looking at a very good end, so to speak. And I don't think anybody wants Nigeria to end. That's not what we're looking at. What we're looking at is solutions. This is the time when our political parties will be bringing their ideas to the table. I think we're approaching that season where they begin to canvass for votes once more. But generally speaking, when you look at where we currently are, what task, if you think that 6 months or how many more months now is too short for the president to do anything, some people will disagree because we still have to live through the campaign season to the next electoral cycle. So what do you think he should be doing now? Should he really be paying attention to what the governors have written down in their recommendations? Because this cuts across bipartisan lines. We understand 33 governors recommended this.
Let me start by saying that, look, we need to get serious. And our leaders, particularly the people in charge of government at the center, must get serious about this country. You cannot continue to pass the buck. Look, this country has been messed up, totally, and there is no apology for that. The question asked from Lagos was on generation of power. The presidency promised in 2016 to generate a certain megawatt. It's not about distribution. These cores and the rest, they are in charge of distribution. But generation is the question that was asked. There has been no increase of even 1 megawatt from what it was in 2015. And that is a betrayal of trust. That is a complete, total failure on the credibility of politicians.
That might not be completely correct.
It's completely wrong.
No, that's not completely. In terms of generation, there's been some improvement. But in terms of...
You have 3,350 megawatts from Mambila Plateau.
No, just a moment, sir.
Under this government?
I'll let you respond, but
Yes.
I do know that we've gotten up to 7,500 megawatts
Absolutely.
in terms of generation, but it has never made it to the transmission line, and it has never made it to distribution.
Now,
so generation, I do know that there's been some improvement there.
It took us from 2015 to now to wriggle out. I'm a lawyer, and I know in every agreement, bilateral or whatever, there is a clause for pulling out. And if this is the reason why government couldn't deliver on its promises, the first thing is to terminate. There is nothing about
to terminate the agreements.
The agreements, yes.
Okay, okay.
Well, once you
so
have,
this is your perspective as a lawyer.
Certainly.
Okay, so
as a layman,
apart from electricity generation right now, which you are saying we should, I mean, the government of the day can terminate. What else would you be recommending that government does at this point?
In terms of electricity,
revenue, we have a revenue problem. We have been told right now our revenue is just enough to service. In fact, I think our debt servicing is more than the revenue which we're currently getting. That is an alarming situation.
There are very simple things that this government is doing that are just crazy. Look, you can't be telling me that you are doing school feeding and the children are at home and billions of naira are going into that project. Who is in charge of this camp? And nobody is questioning them. Under this government, you have one person stealing not 800 naira, not 8 million naira, but 80 billion times 2. In this government.
Accusation is different from, you know, being proven guilty.
EFCC doesn't go to court.
It's important for us to make that dichotomy.
I understand what you're saying.
Yes.
But you see, the figures that they keep bandying are also embedded in what the operators of the government are doing.
We're totally out of time, sir.
Completely terrible.
Okay. We're totally out of time.
And they are not talking about those things. Nobody has been.
So let me quickly let Mr. Onilu respond in 30 seconds if you can, because we're totally out of time.
As a lawyer, he said we could have just terminated, and I'm surprised that a lawyer would say that. As a layman, I would say you have to also ask what is the cost of termination. Have you seen the agreement? Do you know what the implication of terminating?
I have seen.
And what did they say?
There are just
Nigeria will have paid heavily. Just as
you noted,
not just in reputation, we will have paid heavily in terms of money that we are supposed to pay off.
Yes.
It's crazy. That is one. Two, what this governor said has nothing to do with politics. I'm not happy that we didn't focus on that. What the governors are actually recommending will hurt APC if we were to implement them. Because taking subsidy off will compound the problem of poverty. It will mean that people will be paying.
There was nothing like
it will mean people will be paying like 400 naira, 500 naira a liter. And you say that is politics?
Well, this is coming from a government that did not believe in
subsidy. They said there was no subsidy.
Yeah, that's a different matter. We can address that. But for him to say that, no, it's not possible. It is not politics, it is economy.
Gentlemen, we have one more segment to still take on Sunrise Daily. I really have to, I mean, I wish we could continue, but we have to go. I have to thank you both for coming on. Mr. Lanre Issa Onilu is former National Publicity Secretary of the APC, and Mr. Mark Jacobs is a former National Legal Advisor of the PDP and also former Attorney General of Kaduna State. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you so much.
Well, we'll take a break at this point, and we'll have one more segment talking about international relations this time around. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. Well, now we're joined by His Excellency Adejare Bello, who is the Nigerian ambassador to Mexico. He joins us virtually. Good morning, Your Excellency. Thank you for joining us on the program. It's very early morning where you are. We appreciate that. Now, some emergency.
Good morning, Jimbalin.
Thank you. Some emergency, as it were, in the embassy in Mexico concerning COVID-19 outbreak, which has led the embassy to taking certain decisions to shut down the embassy. Could you tell us what is going on?
Thank you so much. Good morning, Nigerians. It is my pleasure to be here this morning. I was in Nigeria for quite some weeks to participate in the governorship election of my state, Osun State. And I came back to see that some of my
staff were not on ground. Asking after them, it was reported by the head of Chancery to me that they tested positive to COVID-19. And having worked with them for 1 week, and I saw that if we don't take some precautions, it will continue to spread. I now ordered on Friday that from today, Monday, the 8th, the embassy is temporarily closed down to allow us to sanitize the environment, fumigate, and for workers, those that are just getting better, to stay at home and get better. So as it is now, the embassy is temporarily closed down, and we hope to resume after 1 week. Thank you.
Well, Your Excellency, one wonders what you think might be responsible for this, what one might call resurgence. It's, of course, we understand about 82% vaccinated people have there in Mexico. What could, in your opinion, be responsible for this resurgence? Because I'm almost certain it's not just limited to the mission. It must be across the country.
If you do the research for that, you will discover that the whole world lost about 5-point-something million people to COVID since 2020. America took the largest chunk of over 700,000, followed by Brazil, followed by India. Next to India is Mexico. Mexico had active cases of about 6.8 million and 328 deaths. Now, as of today, about 6 million recovered and 121,000 still very active. So with all of this, you will discover that Mexico is one of the most hit nations of the world by COVID. As of today, the daily death rate in Mexico is 85 people per day. 85. So one must not take for granted the issue of COVID. When I came to Nigeria, I was used to what was happening in Mexico using my face mask. But I discovered that I was odd man out all through. People will be laughing at you. Why are you behaving this way? Why are you using face mask? So it is because of the background of where I was coming from. So that is the situation here. It is not like Nigeria. The rate at which COVID is ravaging in Europe, America, the president of this nation had it twice. So it's no joke anywhere.
Well, Your Excellency, on a lighter note, I mean, in some of those rooms that you were the only ambassador in those rooms. So you were the odd one out in that regard, as a matter of fact. But then we hope that all of those 6 who have contracted COVID in the mission, we hope none of them is in critical condition and that they'll be back safely, first and foremost. But
no.
Okay, that's good to know.
In fact, when I came, 2 of my drivers that had it were part of the people that came to pick me at the airport. So I was happy for that.
Okay. So what happens to, for instance, those who were supposed to have an appointment with the mission, who were supposed to appear physically, and they don't have any of this information? How will that now work?
If you go through my directive, it clearly stated that the home-based officers, that is, those officers from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Nigeria, and the local staff are to work from home. As we are starting today to work from home, we will not miss anything. And there is a notice at the gates for urgent matters to be attended to. My officers are on ground. I'm on ground to attend to anything that is urgent in nature.
Okay, because that's the bit I was trying to find out, because I saw that, yes, they work from home, but for those urgent ones, a good thing you said that you will be on ground. But you said it's 1 week, not 2 weeks. So after a week, everybody will be back.
By God's grace.
Okay. But you said 1 week at first instance. What does that mean?
I didn't put that there. I didn't say at first instance. Okay. I said 1 week from Monday the 8th.
Okay.
And I mean it.
Okay. Well, that was the...
It will not take time to fumigate the environment. It's not too big an environment. We can fumigate and finish within 1 day or 2.
But what?
It is because we receive on a daily basis a lot of people coming to the mission. And we wouldn't know where it came from, the outbreak. So we want to prevent the coming in and going out of people for quite some time. And I think 1 week is enough to do that.
But, well, that statement, as Chamberlain confirmed, that statement actually said 1 week at first instance. Well, that's been laid to rest now. Well, you've also talked about the fact that, you know, there will be skeletal services, virtual and all of that. What services precisely will be directly affected by the shutdown?
Majorly, those seeking visas to come to Nigeria, those that want to renew their passports, and all of that, consular services in general.
And you said that all services will be returned within the first 1 week.
By God's grace, we are resuming next week, Monday.
Okay. What kind of precautions would you say that the country itself is putting in place to ensure, at least perhaps in collaboration with your office, to the same effect?
Mexico is a very well-organized country. They have put a number of things in place to checkmate the spread. More than 62% of them were vaccinated. They are approved for use. 10 different vaccines from Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, and others. And here in Mexico, whether you are alone in the car or you are with people, you must use your face mask. In the plane, you must use it. Everywhere, you cannot enter any public place without using face mask, unless in your home. So they have done a lot to curtail the spread of the disease here in Mexico.
All right, Your Excellency, it's 2:53 a.m. where you are. We have to let you go. We do thank you very much indeed for your time this morning, and all the best.
Chamberlain Ayo, I thank you for this opportunity, and good morning, Nigerians.
All right. Let's take a look at some messages coming through from you now. Ayo, you've got the first one.
Yes, it's from the Nigeria Union of Allied Health Professionals, and it says, it's unfortunate that part of governor's recommendations to FG is to retrench workers at their productive age, instead of advising FG on cutting down on cost of governance, reducing frivolous gifts to neighboring countries, and shutting down political wastage. Too bad.
Well, Professor Inahena says, government must end subsidy on PMS and use that saving to strengthen our healthcare system, build infrastructure, rebuild our educational system, and reform the power sector to cut the cost of production to grow our export portfolio, which is pivotal for economic development.
And this one is from Obi Chinonso Joseph, who says, retiring civil servants that are up to 50 years, I hope politicians that are above 50 years will also be retired. Nigeria will rise again. Well, Obi, I'm sure they get the message. Well, source for goose should also be source for gander. Thank you so much for watching this beautiful Monday morning. Maokbe Ogu Yusuf.
Oh dear.
Some people will say, well, there's a difference between civil servants and public servants. But I don't know. Amaya Makinde, have a wonderful rest of your day.
I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.